It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All the sports news you need every day in under 20 minutes. Follow Locked On today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. It's game week. That's right. We have a Razorback football game this Saturday, and I don't think I could be any more excited about it. I know you probably can't either. Rice is on the schedule, and throughout this week on the podcast, we're going to have various guests. They're going to be joining us talking about that game and about the Razorbacks and about pretty much everything going on when it comes to Razorback football. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully you all can continue to listen in and subscribe and check out the podcast, as it's going to get fun now. It's going to get really fun. It was fun before, but it's going to get really fun now. And to talk more about it, we're going to have Tyler Wilson, former Razorback quarterback, on in the podcast later in this show to really recap on some of the great things that he believes is happening with the Razorback football team and what he really likes from them and all of that. So it should be exciting. But, you know, on this Monday, the thing that I look forward to the most of game week and being able to hear from Sam Pittman and some of the stuff he said was, of course, something we'll cover. But it is just so cool to see that we're finally arriving at the time where not only you're going to have football, but it's going to be in Razorback Stadium. You're going to have the band back, the cheerleaders back, running through the A is going to be back. All these things are going on that it's just going to feel normal again. Now, I'm not saying everything is 100% normal, but it's certainly going to feel normal once again. And some of the stuff that Sam Pittman had to say today was, enlightening. Nothing too major as far as any major injury updates or anything like that. But we are going to go through a few of the things that he had to say and give our thoughts and opinions on it, and then we'll be joined by Tyler Wilson. But, Sam Pittman opened up today's press conference essentially saying, listen, we look forward to this game. Rice is going to be a good team that's going to come in, try to play bully ball with us, which essentially is saying that Rice is going to be the type of team that tries to really slow the game down, try to get to the finish line quickly, run the ball, control the clock, because that's what they're going to do, at least against Arkansas. So they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder for sure, especially since they've struggled so much the past few years. They're 7-23 under their current head coach, and the fact is that that's not a great record for on any place. But Rice, they're trying to get things going back, but they're supposed to be better this year. But I guess we'll wait and see. But still, he's excited to see what the crowd's going to be like, and excited to see everybody else once the football season gets underway. Also, he was mentioning the fact that injury-wise, they have nothing major, which is great, but he did say that they were still a little beat up on offense and defense. A couple dings here and there. Some players will be full go. Some players may have to be limited as far as some of the play that they're going to have. Guys like John Ridgway, for instance, he won't be available this week in this game, but they expect him to be okay. So, nothing too major, but, and all of you better knock on wood, but they do have plenty of options and plenty of depth to be able to still do what they need to do and game plan the way that they're trying to game plan. So Sam Pittman really likes where they're at as far as that goes. Just having availability, still thinks that they're a little too dinged up on a Monday, but likes where they're going to be going forward for sure. He also talked about, the quarterback position and with KJ Jefferson, and I think that he was very direct, and it's not something that's surprising because I know we've heard it before, but Sam Pittman was very direct when he was talking about, the quarterback situation of what they have right now, saying, listen, Felipe Franks last year was a great quarterback, and KJ Jefferson's a great quarterback too. But last year, Felipe Franks was able to provide something that they needed at that time. Provide that leadership, provide that experience, provide that ability to run the offense, just to provide something that they desperately needed in year one under Sam Pittman. But now with KJ Jefferson and even Malik Hornsby, who's behind him, they feel a lot more confident in what they're going to try to do as far as running the offense goes. These quarterbacks are going to be a lot more inclined and a lot more capable to run the offense in Kendall Briles a lot more effectively. And that's not to say that that Felipe Franks was not good. It's just to say that this is a little bit of a better fit for him. So they obviously feel very confident about that. And he also said that the first thing that they're going to do with their team meeting today, which I thought was fascinating, the first thing that he said that they was going to do at this team meeting is go over all the week 0 college football games and some of the mistakes that major college football programs made. Because they wants to emphasize that even though you're maybe prepared or even though you may think you're ready, there's still things that are going to happen. There's still going to be some letdowns. There's still going to be some times where you maybe feel like, you got it all together, but then you get hit in the mouth and it's about how you respond. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, that that's the approach that he's taking when it comes to trying to get to that next level and make sure that the guys are ready for it as well. But some other things as far as just, simple ground up notes. Talked about that he doesn't recall being on a team with this many seniors and returning players, but man, did we need them to come back. So obviously all the players that did come back is going to be huge for them as far as building depth and everything like that. He says it's going to be also fun having recruits back on campus for official visits since they didn't get to have that last year. And he's also excited to run through the A for the very first time. People forget that, but Sam Pittman didn't get a chance to run through the A last year because of the whole, COVID thing. So they're going to be able to have a chance to do that this year, which will be pretty awesome to see once Sam Pittman actually gets out there as well. So, there's just a recap of it. We're going to have Tyler Wilson on here in just a second to talk about what he thinks about the Razorback football deal. But I have a question for you. Do you know that 85% of people who play fantasy sports lose? I mean, is that really exciting or surprising? This game is rigged against you. I mean, you're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts. So who have more tools and have time more than them? Nobody. So you don't stand a chance. At least that's how you feel like it. But luckily, there's something called Stat Hero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. When I was able to try it out, which I'm not a big fantasy guy, and it's mainly because I don't know the stuff that all the experts know, that's the thing about Stat Hero, is it has helped me out tremendously getting me ready for fantasy football. So if you go to stathero.com/lockedon right now, you can sign up for free. And right now you get 3 times back on your first play. 3 times back on your first play. They're giving a 300% match, and that's unheard of. And it's simple. You just go to stathero.com/lockedon. Try it out, folks. You won't regret it, especially for all you fantasy football players out there. So this is coming up. Some of you may have already done your drafts, but you got to make it happen at stathero.com/lockedon.
David Harrison here, the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, celebrating with you a 21-grain salute to a less boring sandwich thanks to Dave's Killer Bread. I don't know about you guys, but when I eat pizza, I eat it for the toppings, not the crust. And when I eat a sandwich, it's for what's inside the bread, not for the bread. But when I throw a sandwich on 21 whole grains and seeds, thin sliced bread from Dave's Killer Bread, it is the epitome of addition by subtraction. That thin sliced bread lets me focus on what's inside the sandwich, but also adds to the sandwich with killer taste, killer texture, killer nutrition, a subtle sweetness, and a seed-coated crust. Dave's Killer Bread is America's #1 organic bread for a reason. It tastes so stinking good. Dave's Killer Bread is made with the highest quality organic and non-GMO ingredients and is power-packed with whole grains, fiber, and protein. Visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your local grocery store.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily Arkansas Razorbacks podcast.
We're going to be joined by former Razorback quarterback Tyler Wilson here in just a second. First, I got to tell you about Built Bar and how they have 9 delicious flavors to choose from, and there is nothing better when it comes to having a great tasting and healthy protein bar more than Built Bar. They have the flavors to choose from. They have 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar. And the best thing about it is they're easy, they're convenient. You can use them for a snack whenever you're on the go. They taste great. It doesn't get any better than that. Everything about them is incredible. And if you go to BuiltBar.com right now and use promo code LOCK15, you'll get 15% off your first order. That's use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. Right now, let's go to the phone lines. We are welcoming in the former Razorback quarterback, Tyler Wilson, one of the best of all time and a guy that knows his football and really likes what he's seeing from Sam Pittman, at least in year 1, heading into year 2. Tyler, really appreciate you joining us this afternoon, man. How you doing?
John Neighbors, man, I'm good. It's good to hear from you, and always good to talk about football. I know it's football every day in your world, but for some of us, it only rolls around one time a year, and I guess you're calling me because it's 8 days 8 days out. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd call you no matter what, but seems pretty fitting though when we are 8 days away, and it's amazing that we're back here and we're able to look forward to a football season, because when we had you on last year, COVID was going on. Nobody really knew what the season was going to look like. It was Sam Pittman's first year. And just now we know kind of have an idea of what Sam Pittman was doing in this previous year heading into year two. So since we haven't talked to you since then, just kind of give us a synopsis of what you thought, how it went last season in year one of Sam Pittman.
Well, last year was, I think, it exceeded many people's expectations, and that's what I've heard the entire offseason, and the excitement and energy back in this program, and a feeling as though we're headed back in the right direction. We haven't had that energy in a while. The expectations weren't much to improve from, but certainly I think a win last year for our program, and Sam Pittman bringing that energy and consistency back to the program. Obviously, Barry Odom on the defensive side creating a lot of energy as well. We hadn't seen a defensive football team, I think, play that well in quite some time here at Arkansas. So those were all major positives. And then now the question is, moving forward to this year, where do we take it, and what does it look like?
Tyler, this time of the year, as a player, you made it through fall camp, 8 days away. What's that like for a player?
Well, I mean, I'm well out of the football business at this point, and but it's funny because around this time of the year, you people always would say, well, you feel it in the air at football time, and it's certainly hot outside, but it feels like there's a change in something in the air, which is a little bit maybe a little less humid than it was a week or two ago or 3 weeks ago, and you're going, yeah, this kind of feels like I'm supposed to be doing something important around this time of year. So for us and in our world, it's football, and people get more excited. I've gotten 3 or 4 phone calls this week, and hey, what are you doing that second week in September? Are you coming up to the game? Are you going to be a part of the tailgate? And those are things we haven't been able to talk about or feel in the last, especially year and a half with COVID last year, and we missed those things. And I know we're still dealing with some variant of what we know of COVID, and it's among us, but the excitement in football is so much different this year than it was 12 months ago.
Now, Tyler, this year with the quarterback situation, KJ Jefferson's entering into the 2021 season as a starter, and I don't think it's exactly identical, but there are some comparisons where, last year he wasn't the starter, but because Felipe Franks being out, he was able to come into a game against Missouri and perform wonderfully. Now he's the starter. Remember when you were at Arkansas, you were behind Mallett, but when he got hurt in that Auburn game, you came in and set the world on fire, and the next year you overtook QB1. So, what is that feeling like, though, when you go from, a guy that's working in the roster and working up the depth chart, get a little experience, but then you take the reins and you're QB1 heading into the fall camp?
KJ, I thought, did a fantastic job against Missouri. He came in and, I thought Felipe brought some value with moving around and creating some opportunity with his legs, but KJ does that even a little bit more. And you see some more excitement there, and his ability to extend plays. That's the new name of the game. It used to, it was coming on board when I was there, but the new name of offensive football is making coaches that sometimes are guessing and playing fast, and there's not always a solve. It's the X factor being the quarterback to make things happen on his with his legs, and a young quarterback, it's an added value because he's not going to always make the right decision. He's not always going to make the right read. He's going to make mistakes in his early time, and being able to have the flexibility to do that is tremendous. And I think he'll play well. I think they'll have him prepared well. Dow Loggins, I think, is a big addition. I was with Dow in Tennessee with my time at the Titans. Dow brought me to Tennessee. We all got fired, but Dow's had tremendous experience in the NFL and developing quarterbacks and receivers, and I think he's a tremendous value to the offense. And I can see us being a prepared football team week one, which I think is what everybody's asking for.
So, Tyler, how do you see this team being able to improve and just kind of build upon what was established last year?
Well, I think what you want, and everybody wants a win or two or three more than the year before, and that's how everybody wants to calculate moving in the right direction, and that's something that you can look toward at the end of the year and go, yeah, we're getting better as a program, and here's why we should extend somebody's contract or pay him more money or fire him, right? Unfortunately, that's sad, but it's been the truth, has been the truth. But I think what we want to see is better football. We want to see us competing every single week. We don't want to get beat by 40 points by North Texas. That's an obvious position that things aren't going in the right direction, and we've seen that before. Being unprepared for teams that we should be greatly better than. And I don't get that feeling with Sam Pittman and staff. We're always going to be prepared. And we're going to be putting our kids in positions that they can win. One of the things that I always will say, regardless of anybody's comments about Bobby Petrino, was we were a prepared football team, and he put us in really good positions to be the best athletes we could be and win every week, week in and week out. And I feel that way with Sam Pittman and the staff that we've got today. And you know, that's what you can ask for. And we certainly didn't have that 2 years ago. And I think this year we'll be a competitive football team every single week.
We'll continue our discussion with Tyler Wilson here in just a second. But, folks, it's that time of year again, and all eyes are turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo, where you make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener, where the Super Bowl champion Bucs take on the Dallas Cowboys, and if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up. Just make sure to use promo code NFL100. BetOnline.ag is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. If you head over to their website, be sure to use promo code LOCKEDON, as they will give you a great discount there as well, where you're going to have an ability to not only be able to sign up for the opening day super promo, but also to be able to receive 15% off of your welcome bonus as well at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily Arkansas Razorbacks podcast.
Speaking with former Razorback Tyler Wilson here on the show on 103.7 The Buzz. Tyler, I want to go back to your comment about Dow Loggins, because he coming into Arkansas was really impressive, because obviously he's got the connections, but his resume of how long he was in the NFL and had a lot of experience there. But since you got a little time with him, what was he like as a coach? You mentioned preparation, but what are some other aspects of him as a coach and the type of thing that he can add to Arkansas as well?
Well, he knows what Arkansas is about. You know, that's something you can't fake in a program, or you can't make in a program. We had coaches in the past, even after Petrino. I'd sneak in the program late at night. This is when I was playing professionally. I'd sneak into the program, and I'd see a Rocky Top Tennessee shirt on some guys we just hired, and I never thought that was a real good indication that we were surrounding our program with people that bled Arkansas red, and I don't ever question about that with Dow Loggins. I don't question that with a Barry Lunny. I don't question that with a Tim Horton. Those are the kind of guys that you need in your program and have to have in your program. And quite honestly, I think we've gotten away from in the last let's just call it 10 years of our program, we've lost some of those people that turned Arkansas and made Arkansas into Arkansas. When we separated from Frank Broyles, we lost a lot of that. And Dow Loggins adds that to the staff. He adds that to the people. There's a connection, and tremendous experience at the NFL level and trustworthiness, I think, from the kids, because that's what every kid wants to do, is play in the NFL. And you've got a guy on staff that knows what it takes to play in the NFL. You can relate very quickly and very easily to these kids.
One area we've heard a lot about coming into the season, Tyler, is offensive line, and they seem to get better last year. But can you just speak to the importance of the offensive line, not only for the quarterback, but just that entire offense, and how important it is for them to come together and be a good unit?
Well, it takes a little bit of everything. You have to have great coaches. You have to have continuity, which, this is a second year, so you think better position from them. The offensive line's a unique situation and group, the cohesiveness and communication factor they have to have. That was always the funnest part of my journey in football was the offensive line room, because they communicate different than any other group. They're the funniest group. They know details about their personal lives that few other people do, and those are relationships. I can still send a text late on a Tuesday night and go, hey man, what are you doing? And what's been happening lately? I hadn't talked to you in a while, and those are relationships you always build and bring, and I think we're going to be much better this year as an offensive unit. The wide receivers are I think going to have some legitimate playmakers. I think what we've seen is some guys that have had good games but not consistent go-to play throughout the year, and hopefully we have some continuity there and consistency that we haven't had in 3 or 4 years.
Well, Tyler, I want to ask you a little bit of an aspect of the defensive side of the ball, but not necessarily the defense in general, but a guy like Grant Morgan, which we know is a Greenwood product just like yourself, and he started as a walk-on, and then he earned a starting spot. And then he led the SEC in tackles last year, and some people, depending on which out you look at, have him as a first-team All-SEC. Some people are borderline All-American. Just when you see stories like that, and especially when it's kids from Greenwood, it's got to be really cool, because not only that, but he could have left last year, but he decided to come back and play one more year for the Razorbacks.
Well, it's funny, but don't ask me analyst questions anymore. I used to be an analyst, but now just ask me about people. I'll tell you about people. Now I'm in the real estate business and do that day to day, and so just don't ask me about what's going on offensively up there. I have no clue. So I try to fake my way through answers. But you ask me about Drew Morgan, I'll tell you Drew's a great player. You ask me about Grant Morgan, I'll tell you they come from a great family, and he's a great football player. But more specifically, he cares about Arkansas. Back to what I mentioned there with Dow Loggins was he knows Arkansas. He bleeds Arkansas red. I don't question that about the Morgan family. I don't question that about a kid named Grant Morgan that you just mentioned. And coming from really nothing, coming from a guy that was, I think a lot of people had value in, saw some value in, but he was an under the radar guy, and come in and he adapted so well to what Barry Odom was wanting to do, took ownership of it. And you almost can't see a practice clip now without seeing him yelling, screaming, and that passion coming out of him. And what a blessing that a lot of these kids. I know there was challenges everyone's endured through the COVID, but it's a blessing as this additional year. And for a team that is young and building, what a value to get fifth and sixth year kind of mentalities from some of these players that can grow a program up quicker than maybe some of the other teams.
Tyler, if you can, from a fan aspect, fans like to look ahead on the schedule, but if you could put everybody's mind at ease as far as the players, it's game one. You're going into the season excited about the first opponent, and you look at it a game at a time. Now, fans, they're looking ahead to week 2 against Texas, but for this team, all they can think about right now is Rice in game 1.
Well, yeah, I've been a part of some game 1 challenges or even game 2 challenges where we're looking ahead to Alabama or looking ahead to some big games, and those are trap games in certain ways. But again, it goes back to the staff, and it goes back to everyone being on board. I was a part of a trap game my senior year against Louisiana Monroe. I was knocked out at halftime, and they come back and beat us, and it basically derailed that entire senior year beyond. We had a lot of fun those first 2 years, but really one game can change the momentum, and that's what the name of football is about, is momentum. And so the first game is as important as any of them because it sets the tone for the rest of the year. So this is a huge game, and if you want that second week to be what I think everybody thinks it can be, I hadn't seen the energy in Razorback Stadium since 2010 against Alabama. That's the loudest I've ever seen or felt that stadium. And if my anticipation is it's probably like that week 2, but we have to take care of week 1. And so that's the motivation in itself. You guys want to enjoy that week 2? Let's focus. And this is, I think, a great start and a good first game.
Well, Tyler, before we let you get out of here real quick, man, I know that obviously you're doing very well for yourself outside of the game of football and making a career for yourself. But I just
That's
had
debatable. That's debatable.
Well, yeah, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. But
That's
yeah,
debatable.
we were laughing because it's like we like to talk with former players, and now that this new NIL, this name, image, and likeness thing has been available to college athletes and stuff, I feel like, are you one of those guys that looks back and is like, man, I wish that would have been around when I was there. I could have made some money in college. What do you think of the NIL?
Well, I mean, good for the kids, and good for good for college football to finally get on board. If you go back to Joe, if you go back a few years, you probably can find in the archives John Neighbors and Tyler Wilson on another radio show on the western side of the state, and I was arguing on behalf of the players, and I said, guys, it's coming, and here it is. I knew it was inevitable. I knew the players would eventually be compensated. You can have arguments on both sides, whether it's good for the sport or bad for the sport. But ultimately, it's good. It's good for the players because I think it's well deserving. The lifespan of a professional athlete is very small. The opportunity and the time and hours spent to get to be one of those players is very small, and there's no question that they represent a big brand. And in my mind, the difference between playing in college football and playing in the NFL in terms of the people that cared didn't change. There was no difference. I felt like in a lot of ways people cared more about college football than they did about time in the NFL. And so from a care factor perspective, if you want to put a dollar on that or a value on that, it's significant. And so good for these players making money. And I'm sure there were a couple dollars that were left on the table, but I'm glad for the people that can enjoy that and be recognized for their value today.
Well, Tyler, we know that John is all about the players and all about the team, but it sounds like maybe he wasn't in favor of them getting paid at the time.
Well, we'll have to pull those old archives up, John, and figure out what some of the things that I on. But it's funny how it's all turned out, and now it's who's representing these players, and who's paying these players to be a part of their company. That's something. I'm a part of a few companies now, and everybody's going, is this worth us getting in on? Is this worth us finding the right fit for our brand? And it's not only just good for the football program or the basketball program or maybe even some of the baseball players. This transcends college sports to all levels. And if you watch Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy, there's as many female athletes that are being compensated and a part of this and being represented and great for them to be able to transcend the name, image, likeness, and they get both demographics, male and female. So this is a tremendous opportunity for all athletes, and excited that this has finally come to fruition.
Well, Tyler, as always, man, we love it when you come on. We know you're a busy guy, but it's always good to talk with you, talk some football, and talk about everything going on in college athletics. Appreciate it, my man, and we'll be catching up with you later down the road.
Well, I've got to get back to a broker class. I've been on the CE broker classes, so thanks for getting me out of class for a few minutes.
Glad we could help, Tyler. Enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Well, appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNeighbors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily Arkansas Razorbacks podcast.
NFL teams are trimming down while the SEC lays down the law. Here's what our local experts are locked on today. Lots of cuts around the NFL today, including Patriots quarterback and former MVP Cam Newton. Make sure you find your favorite Locked On NFL team podcast today and follow them on Twitter for the latest roster updates. COVID-related absences continue to hamper NFL teams' preseason preparations. The Indianapolis Colts are missing quarterback Carson Wentz, Pro Bowl center Ryan Kelly, and receiver Zach Pascal, who all landed on the reserve COVID-19 list. Our local expert in Indy, Evan Sidery, tells you who will step up in their place today on Locked On Colts. And in college football, the SEC has instituted a forfeiture policy for teams that can't play because of COVID-19. Who will it impact most? The answer is on the Locked On Today podcast. All the sports news you need in under 20 minutes. Follow Locked On today, wherever you get your podcast. Local experts on the biggest stories. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey gang, Chris Gordy here, host of the Locked On SEC podcast, a daily podcast covering your favorite teams and the best conference ever. Not only do we cover all 14 SEC teams in depth, we also get some amazing guests, current players, former players, and the like. Football season is right around the corner. Will it be Georgia and Alabama and Atlanta this year? How many SEC teams will make it to the playoff? And oh yeah, how about adding Oklahoma and Texas to the mix? Listen to the Locked On SEC podcast every day on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.